Hey guys, what's going on? This is Brad from the Ad Army, and today I actually have a quick discussion video for you. Is Vanquish still able to come back after the Yu-Gi-Oh's recent January 1st ban list? And will it be able to retake its place as one of the top tier decks? Now, if you like this video, as always, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the Ad Army. Turn on the notification bell. It's one simple press of a button for you and a big step for me, so I'd really appreciate it. First and foremost, I want to go back on and talking about it. So, for Yu-Gi-Oh content, I've been in a little bit of a slump, mostly because, one, there's been more Digimon stuff to talk about, and there's obviously more stuff for me to do. But the reason I want to talk about this quickly is that I am going to be having more Yu-Gi-Oh content coming up. It's just more, I was trying to figure out what to do, because I wanted to do more of the How to Budget series, but with Vanquish, so now with the ban list, I feel like this deck actually could be readjusted, so maybe I'll show another update video for that, just to show you guys kind of what I added to make it a little bit better. And ultimately, I was going to do a How to Budget series on the Fire King deck, but to be honest, so many people were touching base with the Fire King deck, and outside of you picking up these structure decks and just playing the structure decks, the deck isn't bad, but you probably want to play like Sinful Spoils, so that kind of eliminates it from being budget. But that's not the focus of today. I just wanted to get you guys updated. I want to talk about Vanquish Soul just really fast, because this video is going to be a bit shorter. After our January 1st ban list, is Vanquish Soul going to be a top tier deck with all the other decks hit? And my answer is probably. The biggest reason I'm going with probably is because Vanquish Soul still has all of its core pieces intact. It's arguably the most coherent deck that hadn't been touched that was of the older sets. So what I mean is, of all the other sets on all the other cards and decks that were hit, they were either topping really heavy, they were always making into top cut, or they needed consistency hits, so they were reduced down. Something like Airlifter going to 1, for instance. That was done to limit the deck's power. Now, when it comes to the other cards, or specifically Vanquish Soul, it has everything. You have your triple Raisin, you have Stake Your Soul at 3, you do have access to some of the other cards. Prosperity's been reprinted, so that's something I might pick up. My point I want to get across to you guys is Vanquish Soul still has everything that will allow it to be more consistent and viable. However, it doesn't mean that the deck isn't going to have its problems. So, what I mean is, someone who's a really good Vanquish Soul player might be able to take this really far and take it deep into the tournament. However, I'm not sure about everyone picking up Vanquish Soul, because although some people think the deck is easy, it also takes a lot of, I guess, forethought, because there's times where you will not have access to like Raisin, or you won't have the best hand. So you'll have to play through a board, or play into a board, or set up a board with like probably the least optimal amount of cards. And that doesn't even include you having to deal with things like interactions like hand traps. So we have to keep that in mind as well. I do think that this deck has resilience, in that you can play it with supporting engines. I don't think without hitting Kashtira, obviously, you can play triple Fenrir in the deck. I think that's obviously a standard thing to do. So you do have access to Fenrir still. It is a bit on the expensive side, but hey, if you want to play it, you can. It's just happy as an option. But the point is, this allows Vanquish Soul to play with really good cards. And at its core, I think that's what makes this deck so strong, is that it really relies on the engines that go with it, not necessarily the power it boasts itself. And the deck is still strong on its own. It's just that each card is more of a one-to-one and needs some setup, whereas any engine that can give you additional pluses for free is going to be very, very beneficial. One of the things I want to talk about that makes Vanquish Soul such a good pick, if you're thinking about going to any of the tournaments coming up in the next couple months, obviously, we don't have any notification that there's going to be an additional ban list coming up anytime soon. So, that makes the rest of this deck safe to pick up and invest. Now, I haven't checked the prices as of late. However, I do know Vanquish Soul hasn't been on the topping side recently, at least in major tournaments. It's been maybe showing up as like a showcase deck in the, the featured matches. So, let that be known that the deck still is seeing representation. So good pilots are taking it out and trying to run with it. But I do think that in the ban list for specifically what's happening, this deck will do a lot better. I think because they've hit a lot of decks that had somewhat difficult matches for it. Like something like Tier, one of its biggest problems was that if your deck started getting milled out a bunch through like YUGIOH or Kelbeck, you started to want to keep some of your pieces into the deck because you just want to search them out instead of them being like milled to the grave, because Vanquish Soul's only recursion piece is like Rock of the Vanquisher. So that always kept the deck, down. And also with something like, let's see, something like the hits to some of the other decks, you start to see the differences. Like Rescue Ace's matchup against Vanquish Soul was always really good because they just put up a board that was hard to crack. Lair Lifter to 1, it reduces that consistency, so they're going to have to spend the emergency either to get out the board set up, or they're going to have to find a new way to get access to their cards. So, we can take advantage of that as well. I do think that you could try to hybridize Vanquish Soul to make it stronger. There's so many engines you can slap into it. I just don't think they're going to boast the same amount of consistency. And if you want to go all in, spend the money, go ahead, get your SP Little Knights, get your Typhons. They do real well on this deck. And I'm not just saying that because I haven't played it. It's just they work very good for the deck. One is basically a 1-card Zeus counter. And the other one is just so generic and powerful that it's hard not to notice when you don't have SP Little Knight. So just putting it out there for you guys. I haven't picked up my copy, but I'm just saying if you want to, that card runs really well in Vanquish Soul because it gives it a layer that it didn't have access to. And that's important. So ultimately, guys, this is kind of where Vanquish Soul is. You have to kind of figure out where you want to take it. I think some secret goo might come out. Someone's going to find a deck that, or find a way to build this deck that no one's seen, that might come up and just kind of take out the metagame, or someone might just revert it back to its roots and play like the control versions where they play specifically like Shifter and, try Floodgates, but without, there can be only one. This is going to make Vanquish Soul a little bit weaker in that because you can't just side 3 in and hope that you can sack your opponent anymore. That's just, kind of sad, but hey, it is what it is. The game's healthier for it. There's a lot of different things you can do with Vanquish Soul, and I'm going to leave it up to you guys. So, tell me what you think in the comments below. Let me know if this was helpful, but also remember to tell yourself, if you want to play a good deck, figure out what it is. Now, this is Brad from the Ad Army signing off. And for all of you out there, to sign on.